what is the most common area of the cost plan where organizations leave money on the table? I could have written all night. Example with the bank fees. I would say 9 out of 10 agencies do that. So that's my first place I go to everybody is ask that question, because they all, what you don't see out of sight, out of mind. You don't see it, you don't think about it, you don't realize that those are costs that you need to be collecting. So that's the easiest one. A lot of agencies don't realize they can charge interest on loans and bonds, so that was a good question, or attorney's fees for setting up the loans. So those are all classified as indirect, so they don't know that. So I always ask that question in terms of if we're going to put in buildings, hey, do you have, is this building paid for? Do you have, a loan on it? Have we, calculated the interest? Because, especially these days in the last 10 years, you're buying properties, we're talking about significant amounts of money, and the interest alone can be $1 million a year. So, it can get up there in terms of how much money they're spending on interest. That's allowable. So, that's an important thing. Another area where I see is if they're doing an OMB plan and we're doing these revenue reconciliation, that's where I see the biggest problem in terms of agencies messing up, and consultants don't even know this, deeming them an unallowable revenue or not. So when most people say, okay, charges for service. Oh, well, it was for a service, so I'm going to offset the costs. Well, what happens is when people do a cost plan, what are we doing? What are we trying to do? We are trying to calculate indirect costs for service being done, right? So let's say you do a cost plan, you calculate what a department should pay you. So let's say the water fund. A water fund owes $1.2 million for finance costs and HR costs and all those kinds of things. So you figure that out in the cost plan. So then the next year, you say, okay, water fund, you owe me $1.2 million. Pay me in 12 payments of $100,000. So they pay $100,000 a month, and now it's a revenue, right? So now if you look at their revenue, and there's going to be costs that come into the finance department, there's going to be revenues that come into the HR department, there are going to be revenues that all come from water that make up this $100,000 from the cost plan from the previous year, okay? So if you pull a revenue report and you look at it, it's going to say charges for service, $100,000 water. And you're going to think, okay, well, it's charges for service, so I should offset the cost. No, no, no. Why would you give the money that you just collected for service, you collect it, and then you say, okay, next year, just kidding, let me give it back? Because if you're doing a cost plan and you are going to collect money, because that's the whole purpose of the cost plan, you don't want to give the money back. So the theory is, so this happens all the time. So what you need to do is, when you look at charges for service, for revenue, it's, did the service happen in the current year as the revenue is collected? That's the only time you're going to do an offset. If the service happened in the previous year, it's an unallowed revenue. And what happens here is that because services are different each and every year, sometimes you might get lucky and you do an offset and it won't create a negative. But if the service changes at all and you do less of a service or more of a service, then the cost when you offset it could create a negative. And that means you owe them more money. So not only are you giving it all back, you're going to give them more.